What's up, world of YouTube? It is I, Carl, your host from the Massive 20 channel. We're here today to upgrade this van. This is an 04 Chevrolet Express 3500. Happens to be a cube van, but obviously this video will apply to any Chevrolet or GMC Savana from 03 to 19. What are we doing? We're going to get rid of this lame base model truck van grille, and we're going to get rid of these lame sealed beam headlights in favor of the higher end composite headlights. Why? So your van can go from this to this. And also probably better lighting, better resale, get, more attraction from the opposite sex. It's just a way better deal all around. I've noticed lately too, about 75% of these vans happen to have this low rent work van grille. You got to change it. The good news is it's mostly a bolt-on affair. Just a little bit of trimming to the core support. It's a plastic core support. A little bit of trimming so you can fit the backside of the composite headlights in there. But for the rest of it, it's bolt-on grille. We're also going to do the bumper, mostly because this one is caved in. But we're going to go to the chrome bumper. Again, looks a little higher end. I think I might actually wrap both the chrome strip on the new grille and the bumper white, just to kind of do a little custom deal, but that's not really the main purpose of this video. All right, first thing we're going to want to do, if you live in a shit climate like I do, zap all your bolts down with your favorite penetrating oil, WD-40, the like. There are 2 bolts on the bottom of the bumper here that mount to a little bracket that goes to the frame rail, and then there's 2 bolts that go up here through the frame horns themselves. You're going to want to zap those down with some penetrating oil, pop the hood, and there's a couple of 10 mils up here. The rest is mostly just plastic tabs. Because I am going to swap this plastic trim piece to my new bumper here, I blasted all of the little plastic tabs down with some penetrating oil as well, just to make hopefully my job a little bit easier. If you're in the south of the US or anywhere else doesn't have a lot of salt, then you probably don't need to do that, and you're doing things right. Why do I live here? I don't know. Now we're going to have a complete list of the tools you would want in the description. You don't need an impact wrench to do this job, 3/8 or 1/2 inch. However, I do. It's going to make it a little quicker. So if you got access to it, you should use them. Like I say, 2 10 mils on the grill. There's 2 15s on the lower brackets for the bumper, and then I believe the big ones going through the bumper are 21s. I forgot there's a couple of 10 mils behind the turn signal here. So obviously I don't need to remove these turn signals properly on this side, but on this side you got to use a long screwdriver. Pops right out. So right here, and right here, 2 more 10 mils.
Okay, so like I say, I'm going to reuse this plastic trim piece on top. So I'm going to have to undo a bunch of these little plastic clips here. You pretty much just squeeze on them with a pair of pliers and they'll pop out. We're also going to reuse these foam pieces here, which just kind of get like trapped in between and located by these little molded in locating pins. We also have to transfer these three reinforcements. There's one on each side and then a center one. So there's a total of 14 bolts on the various reinforcement panels here, and all of them are carriage bolts except for these two locations here. These will require an 18mm wrench as well as your ratchet to get off. Okay, now I've got all the fasteners out, and they just pull right out, so pretty easy peasy there. Let's see if they line up as nice on the new bumper. So now I pop this over here. I'm going to grab a pair of pliers and just squeeze on each one of these, kind of tug out at the same time, and it'll just kind of pop them out of the little opening. All right, got that off in one piece. It's not perfect, it's a little wavy, but those are about 90 bucks or something, and I think it's certainly reusable. It'll probably flatten out after being in the sun a little while. Both of these little foam guys just kind of fell off. There were those little locating tabs, but they kind of just fell right off. I will probably put some kind of an adhesive on the inside of here to hold them on. That way they can't fly off going down the road. All right, we got the new bumper out here now. Now, I did go with one of the Chinese, well, this is a Taiwanese reproduction, not an OEM GM bumper. My first instinct was to look for a junkyard OEM bumper, but around here again in the Midwest, all of them were either crushed and destroyed like mine, or they were all rusty. So we went with this reproduction piece. Recollection, it was about 100 bucks. I went with the chrome, honestly, because I wanted there to be some kind of a coating even on the back side. If I bought just the basic primed bumper, which is only about 10 bucks cheaper, I'd have to paint both sides to have some modicum of rust resistance, and I don't really want to do that. I don't like painting, you know. I'm good at bolting stuff on. I really am not a painter. I think I will wrap this one anyway. I'm way better at wrapping than painting as well, so I'm gonna go ahead and start transferring over all the bracketry. All right, got all these reinforcements bolted back on. Really did not fight me much, so pretty happy about that. I had to bang on this center one a little bit to straighten her out, but that's about it. You probably could put this plastic trim piece back on now. Because I'm going to wrap this, it will be a lot easier for me to wrap it when it's on the truck. It'll have something to hold the bumper steady while I'm applying the wrap. So I will probably now install this, finish the wrap, and that should just be able to pop back on when I'm done. Additionally, there is a lower lip as well that should be no problem to install once it's on the vehicle. All right, we got the bumper back on here. I just slid it on. So far, it's not actually tightened down. Got to put these two long bolts back in. The fastener on the bottom that accepts these bolts is not a traditional nut. It is a speed clip, as they call it. It's kind of a threaded insert that's on a little clip. Kind of cool because it can move around a little bit. It gives you a little bit of flexibility with the bumper if you need to slide it in or out, side to side. So the downside is you got to kind of aim them just right and hope they go in. So here goes nothing. I am liberally applying anti-seize, so if I ever need to do this job again, stuff will come apart, I hope. So instead of finishing putting back on the trim on the bumper, the lip and all that, the bolt and the brackets on, I'm going to leave that stuff off so I can more easily finish my wrap, but I'm going to continue on with modifying this header panel or core support, whatever you want to call it,
for the composite headlights. All right, so to get these headlights off, I'm sure you could remove these little adjuster screws, but because I have no interest in saving these headlights, I'm just gonna simply pry off here. There's a spring on the bottom. You just get in there with a screwdriver, pop that out. Same here, just pop this sucker out. Unplug it. And throw this in the trash. Because we're gonna cut out some of this black plastic here and we're gonna use the different headlights. We don't need these adjusters anymore. I'm just gonna use a pair of pliers to squeeze on these tabs and just push them in, and now they're gone. I'll find that somewhere someday. Now, in order to install these composite headlights on this vehicle, we're gonna have to do some modifications to the radiator core support. It's this big plastic piece that goes all the way across the front of the truck. Chevy actually made two different versions, one for the composite headlight, one for the sealed beam. If you just slide the composite headlight in there, the adjusting screws, the plugs will just bang right into here. So you could just purchase a whole new core support or maybe get one in a junkyard, but they're expensive and they're actually really difficult to swap. There's like 20 bolts, you gotta undo some of the air conditioning fittings and stuff. So what we're gonna do is just modify the one we have here. We're gonna save money and time. The cool thing is, GM clearly used the exact same mold when they made this big plastic core support. So the cool thing is, there's little casting lines, little mold lines, faint lines that kind of show you exactly where to cut. So this is the only hard part of this installation. It's not a true bolt-on. We're gonna do a little close-up. We'll show you those lines. I'm gonna use a paint marker to make them a little bit more obvious. I'm gonna cut this out with an air reciprocating body saw. You could also use a die grinder, a Dremel tool, something of that sort. You just kind of go around here and remove this whole little area. Now, I'll show you the piece when I'm all done. You'll get a really good idea of what needs to come out. Here is the driver's side completed modification. I have to open up these slots here. And now that we've got all that cut out, we can basically just slide this sucker in. These little guys just kind of hook on the bottom, pretty simple. And then there's two bolts that hold the actual headlight on, here and here. We got to put speed clips and a couple of 10mm bolts. I'm going to put the part numbers for those bolts in the description. Booyah! This is the hardware you're going to need to install these headlights. 4 of these P-clips or speed nuts, U-nuts, and then 4 of these M6 bolts. You can get these at the junkyard or at your GM dealer, or way cheaper at your local O'Reilly's. The brand is Disco. Part numbers are on the stickers. Next necessary step is going to be electrical. Now you have 3 wires here. We've got a ground and we've got a 12 volt for the high beam and the low beam. So if you're creative and if you have some weather pack fittings, or not fittings, but connectors laying around, certainly you can cut this H4 style connector off and wire them into your now divorced high and low beam in your composite headlamp. Way easier, go on Amazon or eBay and buy one of these harnesses. There's a couple of different styles. There's a real basic style that's just a bunch of connectors. This one's a little bit fancier. It has some relays, some fuses, and it actually draws battery power. So I think it's a little bit better way to split off this power into the two beams. It's about 14 bucks on Amazon. I'll definitely have the part numbers down below in the description. Again, pretty much plug and play. I'm going to run a power and a ground right off the battery. I'm going to just zip tie these over here next to the battery. One plug goes to the passenger side headlight. The other one snakes across to the driver's side headlight. All right, so as far as mounting our relays and fuses, I just kind of zip tied it here to one of the harnesses. I'm going to run a ground right here on the inner fender well, and we'll run the positive right to the battery terminal itself. Harness is in now, so we've separated the single plug off into two discrete plugs. On this particular harness, they are not true 9005 and 9006 plugs, meaning they would work on either side. So definitely going to want to get a partner to cycle between high and low and make sure you're plugging in the correct plug to the correct bulb position on your new headlights. You could probably tell from my clothing and 5 o'clock shadow that some time has passed. We ran into a few technical difficulties as well as, time, weather, all that stuff, work. 3 things occurred on this particular project, all the things that might happen to you. I just recently picked up this truck. The battery was shot. It was enough to drive the thing, but if it sat for any length of time or even had the headlights on for a few minutes, voltage dropped way low. I started pulling my hair out, things weren't working right, realized, hey, it was time for a battery. So we put a new battery in the sucker. That helped a lot. Kind of another unexpected thing was our factory plug totally corroded. If you can see this at all, it is blue, totally rusted, totally disgusting. This was causing us all kinds of problems. We'd get, only the high beams would work one time, only the low beams would work one time. We ended up cutting the whole darn thing off. We just replaced it with some tab connectors, just some regular old crimp-on connectors. We heat shrinked them hopefully to make sure that kind of stuff isn't going to happen again. Other difficulty we ran into, our awesome Chinese harness kind of sucks. One of the relay plugs, where the plug, actual relay plugged into, one of the little tab connectors in there just kind of was being pushed out. So again, only part of the time we would be making connections. So we kept hearing the relay clicking back and forth, took it all apart, pushed it back in, ran a little zip tie magic on there, and now she's good to go. You can also see here we added some of our own super awesome JDM HID and LED kits because that's just how we roll over here. You don't have to do that. The headlights I came with obviously came with traditional halogen bulbs, totally up to you, but I like to live that life. So we upgraded to HIDs. Lots of room back here to stuff the ballast and stuff in. So at this point, our next step is to tuck all this wiring in here and zip them in. Lights are done. Next step, going to be our grill. In order to do that, we're going to need to pull these 4 clips off of the existing factory grill and transfer them over to our new grill. I'm sure there's probably a fancy GM way to do this, but I just kind of grabbed it with a pair of pliers and popped it right off. To transfer them over, you just kind of push them right back on to the new grill. Clips transferred. Only 2 necessary on this grill. And you just kind of guide it in here. There's 2 clips all the way down here on the bottom. These kind of line it up on top. Bang her home. We're going to have our bolts down here like we did on the factory grill. And of course 2 bolts up here, and we're good to go.
Okay, we're gonna reach in here and fish out our electrical connections for our running light and turn signal. Turn those into our signals here once we figure out where they go. And set in the inboard side first. Good to go. All right, now in order to get our deluxe lower valence in this bumper, we need to put a bunch of these square clips into all of these holes here. Like I say, the deluxe bumper has more of them. The stock work van bumper only has I think 4, and this one, because it's a much wider valence, it has about 10, 12. So I'm going to pop all those in and put the lip on. Okay, got our lip ready. All the clips are in place. I've got them here in the, I've got the lower pin extended, so it's not expanding the top of the pin yet. Now we're going to slide this in. These have a lot of play in them, which is nice. Allows for a lot of misalignment. Probably a two-man job. Bumper on, grill is in, Chevy symbols on, just pops right in there. I think she looks killer. Be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell to this channel for more wild and crazy content.